On today's video, I'm going to show you a proven strategy for how to wholesale a property when the contract with the seller clearly says you can't wholesale it. Coming up.
Go to 8weekacademy.com to claim your free copy of Jerry Norton's most popular training. In it, he reveals his blueprint for making $100,000 per year with real estate.
Hey, if this is your first time here, I'm Jerry Norton, and this channel is all about ways to help you make money wholesaling and flipping real estate so you can live your dream life. Be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications so you don't miss new videos. Believe it or not, in some situations as a wholesaler, you will encounter sellers who do not like wholesalers or wholesaling, and in an effort to prevent wholesalers from assigning contracts, some sellers put specific written language right in the contract that says you cannot assign or wholesale the contract. It's called a no assignment clause. All bank properties such as REOs and short sales have no assignment clauses in their contracts. Now, I've had real estate agents put no assignment clauses in contracts. I recently had a probate attorney put a no assignment clause in the contract. And regardless if you agree or disagree, as a wholesaler, you are going to run into situations where your contract with the seller has a no assignment clause. First, let me tell you why that's a problem and what most wholesalers do about it, and then show you my proven hack strategy to overcome the no assignment clause. And you won't learn this anywhere else. I'm the only one who teaches this, so pay close attention. If you're new to the game of wholesaling, the best way to structure a deal is to get an executed purchase and sale agreement with a motivated seller, then assign that contract to a cash buyer for a fee, let's say $15,000. What's great about doing an assignment of contract is there is only one closing transaction between the seller and the new buyer, and you, the wholesaler, don't have to come to closing with any money because you're not the buyer, and you don't have to pay any closing fees because, again, you're not the buyer, and you walk away from the closing with a big fat check. But a no assignment clause prevents you from doing a traditional single closing assignment and forces you to do a double closing. Now, here's how a double closing works. Closing one is with the seller and you, the wholesaler. Since you're the buyer, you have to come to closing with the funds to buy the property and pay closing fees. Now, if you don't have the funds, you can borrow the money using a day funding service called transactional funding, but it's expensive. Now, I did a video that explains how it works. I'll put a link to that in the description below and you can check it out later. Then right after closing one with the seller, you immediately turn around and do closing two between you now as the seller and your cash buyer. And guess what? You pay closing fees all over again for the second time, and this time the fees are more because the state charges you a transfer tax plus title insurance, etc. Now, not only is a double closing a hassle, it's expensive and it cuts into your wholesale profit on the deal by thousands of dollars. So wouldn't it be great to somehow not violate the no assignment clause while at the same time still do a single closing and not need to fund the deal or pay closing fees? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how. In fact, in the past 16 years that I've been a full-time wholesaler and a flipper, I've done this exact technique I'm going to teach you hundreds of times, mostly with bank-owned properties. Trust me, if you do it right, it works. Now, I'm going to give you a quick overview and then slow down and break it down step by step. The workaround to a no assignment clause is to create an LLC that goes on the contract as the buyer, and then rather than changing the buyer, which isn't allowed, instead, we sell the LLC to our cash buyer and change the owner or member of the LLC from you to your cash buyer. Think about it. The LLC is still the buyer on the contract, thus not violating the no assignment clause, but the member of the LLC changed from you to your cash buyer. Boom. Leave a comment and say, Jerry, you are a flipping genius. Now, if I lost you, don't worry. I'm going to slow down and break it down step by step and even give you everything you need to do it on your next deal. There are 5 steps. Step number 1 is to form a brand new single member LLC for the sole purpose of wholesaling your deal. Now, you'll see why, but this has to be done per deal. Now, please don't get hung up on how to create an LLC. It's really simple. Just go to the website howtostartanllc.com and it will walk you through how to do it in your state. Now, if you do it yourself, in most states, it's really inexpensive, like $50 or so, except California where it costs $900 because, come on, it's California. Once you create an LLC with the state, you don't need to get an EIN number or open a bank account or any of that. It's not an operational LLC. Don't forget, you're going to sell the LLC to your cash buyer. As an important side note, you need to understand some of the terminology involved with LLCs. The official formation of an LLC is called the Articles of Organization, which you'll receive from the state. The person who creates the LLC is called the registered agent, which can be you, a lawyer, your grandma, the kid that mows your lawn, or anyone you want. It doesn't matter. You are the owner of that LLC, but with LLCs, they're not called owners or managers, they're called members. And since you're creating a single member LLC, you are the 100% sole member. In addition to the Articles of Organization, you'll also need an operating agreement which spells out your roles and responsibilities as the sole member, such as signing on behalf of the LLC. More on that in a minute. Step 2 is when executing a purchase and sale agreement with a seller where the contract has a no assignment clause, put your newly formed LLC as the buyer on the contract and sign as your name, comma, member. So for example, if my new LLC is called Jerry is a Flipping Genius LLC, on the line of the contract that says buyer, I would put Jerry is a Flipping Genius LLC, and where it requires a signature, I would sign Jerry Norton, comma, member. Okay, after executing the contract with a seller, step 3 is to find a cash buyer exactly how you would with a normal wholesale deal, but instead of using regular real estate paperwork, you're going to do it differently since you're not selling real estate or assigning a real estate contract, you're selling the LLC. Now I'm going to go over my word-for-word scripts for what to say and how to explain this to your cash buyer in a minute, so keep watching. After finding your cash buyer, step 4 is to execute a LLC membership purchase agreement. Basically, this document says, seller agrees to sell the interest to purchaser, and purchaser agrees to purchase the interest from seller. The purchase price for the interest shall be $15,000 or whatever your desired wholesale fee would normally be, which shall be paid by purchaser to seller via a deposit in the amount of $5,000 or whatever earnest money you normally get, immediately upon execution of this agreement, with the remainder, in this case $10,000, to be paid at the closing of the real estate transaction. And after signing the LLC purchase agreement, step 5 is just prior to closing, ideally at the title company in the lobby, meet the cash buyer to sign the official transfer of 100% membership of the LLC, at which time he gives you the balance of the money owed, which in our example would be $10,000. Now you'll also give him a new operating agreement which states he's the 100% sole member of the LLC, which he'll need to provide to title in order to sign on behalf of the LLC for his closing with the seller. Now keep in mind, this happens outside of closing. This is not on the closing statement or handled through title because it's not buying and selling real estate, it's buying and selling an LLC, which has nothing to do with title. And you, my friend, just did a single closing without assigning your contract. That means you earned your full wholesale fee and you didn't have to do a double closing, fund the purchase, or borrow transactional funding, or pay any closing fees. Now, if you think that's brilliant, leave a comment and say, Jerry, you've outdone yourself. This time, you are a flipping genius. Okay, now a few things you need to know. First of all, once you sell the LLC on your deal, it's no longer yours. It now belongs to your cash buyer. What they do with it is up to them. They can keep it, transfer title out of the LLC, or whatever they want. It doesn't concern you anymore. If they want to change the registered agent with the state or pay renewal fees, that's on them. What this also means is if you want to do it again, you have to create a new LLC with the state each and every time you do this technique. Like I said, I've done this hundreds of times over the past 16 years, mostly with bank-owned properties. And honestly, the hardest part about the whole thing is explaining it to your cash buyer in a way that is not confusing. So here's your word-for-word script to use with your cash buyer. Mr. Cash Buyer, because the original contract with the seller has a no assignment clause, here's how I'd like to do this transaction to avoid having to do 2 closings. I set up a single member LLC named Jerry is a Flipping Genius LLC, which is the buyer on the executed contract with the seller. I'm going to sell you 100% interest in that LLC so you become the new sole member. Then on the day of closing, you step in and close directly with the seller. Here's how it works. I have an LLC membership purchase agreement that we sign right now with a copy of my executed purchase contract with the seller. You will give me a deposit of $5,000 now and the balance of $10,000 on the day of closing. Just prior to closing, we'll sign a transfer of membership interest where you officially become the new 100% sole member of the LLC. I'll also give you an operating agreement, which you'll need for the closing. At that point, you close directly with the seller. And now for the best part, I put all of this together for you. I call it the LLC Flipper Kit, and it includes a step-by-step guide for how to do this technique, along with the cash buyer scripts, as well as all of the paperwork, including the LLC membership purchase agreement, the transfer of membership interest, and the operating agreement. And that's not all. I've even created a video tutorial for how to fill out all of the paperwork, which I paid thousands of dollars for my attorney to create. And for a limited time, I'll give you my LLC Flipper Kit for free. You heard that right? Free. Just go to llcflipperkit.com. It'll take you to a page where you can watch a video with more information. And from there, just enter your email and you'll get a login with everything I just explained. Okay, so let's recap the 5 steps for using my LLC hack to overcome a no assignment clause. Step 1, create an LLC. Step 2, use the LLC as the buyer on your no assignment contract with the seller. Step 3, find a cash buyer, same as always. Step 4, execute an LLC membership purchase agreement with your cash buyer and get a deposit. Step 5, on the day of closing, execute a transfer of membership interest, get the balance of your wholesale fee, and give the cash buyer a new operating agreement. And to help you do it, get my LLC Flipper Kit with step-by-step guides, scripts, and paperwork, all for free. Just go to llcflipperkit.com. Next, I want you to watch a video where I break down how to buy bank-owned properties. You'll learn 10 powerful tips that have helped me buy hundreds of bank-owned properties over the years. Watch that now, and if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to my channel. With almost 600 videos, this is the #1 channel on YouTube for all things wholesaling and flipping, and I'll see you on the next video.